Hello, this is Math 3-2, adding and subtracting decimals. There's a really big rule. When you add and subtract decimals, you must line up the decimal points. I like to say, line them up. Now notice, they wrote the problem sideways. The math book is going to write the problem sideways because they want to find out if you're smart enough to line up the decimals. So, you take your first number, and it doesn't matter which one's first when you're adding, write it down, and then you line up your second number with it where the decimal points line up. Then you add. And when you add, you bring your decimal point down. So that's a 9. And that's 11. And that's 4 plus 8 is 12. And that's 2. So you get 22.19. And that's your answer. Now it's very important to remember that lining up decimals is only for add and subtract. You don't line up decimals for anything else, only when you're adding and subtracting them. So, we've got the whole number 9 and 3.245, and we have to add, so we have to line up our decimals. Well, many of you are saying, but 9 doesn't have a decimal. Yes, it does. All whole numbers have a decimal point. We just don't write them down until there's a reason. So when we write 9 down, we put the decimal right behind it where it goes. There's a reason to write a decimal with this 9 we're about to have to line up. Then we put 3.245. So now we have to fill in the empty spaces with the zeros. And then we're ready to add. So that's 5, 4, 2, bring down your decimal. Oh, that's not a decimal. And that's 12. So 12.245. You only line up decimals when you're adding and subtracting. Whole numbers always have a decimal. And sometimes you have to put zeros. Okay, here's another one. 15.39 minus 2.6. We need to line up the decimals. So, 15.39 minus 2.6. We have a blank spot, so we fill in a 0, and we're ready to subtract. Well, you can't take 6 away from 3, so you have to borrow. And what am I forgetting to do? Bring down my decimal point. Don't forget to bring down your decimal point. Now, remember, we are always going to have positives and negatives. And so, when you're doing this with decimals, you kind of need to decide, is this a normal subtraction problem? Or do I need to change it to plus a negative or plus a positive? One of these is normal. By normal, I mean you have a bigger number minus a smaller number. Two of these are not normal and need to be changed. The first one is the normal one. When I subtract that, I'm going to get around 9 because 12 minus 3 is 9, so I must be going to get close to 9 for my answer. It's a normal problem. 12 is bigger than 3. But look at this one. This one is not normal because I can't really subtract 9 away from 4. And so I have to think, oh, this must be negative land. So I'm going to have to change my 1 minus sign in the middle to plus a negative. Now, that creates a problem though, because now I'm going, oh wait, I'm adding, but one's positive and one's negative. So at that point, I start to try to estimate and kind of think through the problem first to decide how it's going to come out. And the way I do that is I just look at the whole numbers and I go, oh, well, 4 plus negative 9. Well, 4 plus negative 9 would be negative 5. Since 4 plus negative 9 is negative 5, my real answer to this problem must be somewhere close to that. So how in the world would I get negative 5 from that 4 plus negative 9? What you're actually doing to get the negative 5 is you're going 9 minus 4, and there's more negatives, so it makes the answer negative. So I'm going to take this, subtract this, line up the decimals, and my answer is going to be negative. So you're going to subtract them, and your answer is going to be negative. You need to fill in a 0. Your decimals should be lined up. And I can't even write my answer there because there's not room. But you should get a 3. You got to borrow here, 89, and that's going to be an 8. So an 8 and a 3. And my stylus does not want to write. I'll have to write over here probably. And let's see, that's going to be a 3, an 8, and then that's a 9 minus 1, that's another 8. And then that's an 8 minus a 4, that's a 4. And we already decided the answer is going to be negative, and we don't want to forget to put our decimal. Negative, wait, our decimal doesn't go there, it goes here. Negative 4.883 is really close to negative 5. So the negative 5 is not our answer, it just helped us find our real answer. Now, when you get down to the bottom one, it's not normal either. So when you see, remember, we learned this with whole numbers, when you see two minus signs in the middle, that changes to plus, or plus a positive. So this is really just 5.23 plus 3.62, and that makes it a lot easier. Okay, here's your video homework. 3 problems. Don't forget to line up those decimals. Have a nice night.